I was a serving magistrate, obviously an ex-police sergeant. Ever had a potential councillor or councillor knock on the door. It was unjust. It was quite upsetting to see that the local media took hold of it, how many votes the Liberal Democrats got and how many votes, Reform got.
Let's jump into this. So you are now a Reform councillor in Somerset. Are you the only one on the council?
Yes, I am. Yeah,
you are. What made you jump ship from being an independent councillor to joining Reform?
I've always had an interest in Reform, to be honest. And in 2017, I also had a bit of an interest locally in UKIP. I retired from the police service in 2014, and my interest in politics became came to the forefront. And during that time, I moved to a village called Wick St Lawrence, and this village had a councillor, and everybody was sort of. There wasn't really a lot of good things being said. I think she'd moved away from the area at some stage, and such like. And cut a long story really short, I had some planning issues, and I was finding it really, really difficult to contact and deal with the planning department of the council, and it really, to some extent, annoyed me. And a friend of mine was a councillor, and he said to me one day over a coffee, he said, "Stuart, you're better fighting from the inside out than the outside in. If you're that adamant that you don't like the way that they operate in certain things, not just planning, but other things within the town, you should run for councillor." Now, I sort of didn't really take it on board to a certain extent. And then as time went along and the elections were coming around the corner, a lot of local people that got to know me within the new village and knew my background. I was a serving magistrate, obviously an ex-police sergeant. They said, "Oh, you should go for it. We need somebody a little bit younger, dare I say it, and a little bit more proactive." So I thought I'd run for the council. Now, I stayed as an independent because, and the reason I stayed as an independent is that politically, I don't feel personally that local governance should be politically biased, if you like. And the way I explained this on the doorstep when I walked around and spoke to the constituents was that if you've got a problem in your local road, maybe, potholes is a big subject in the UK. You've got a pothole in your road and you contact me as your local councillor and say, "I've got this massive pothole, Stuart, can you do something about it?" I'm not going to say to you, "What party do you vote for? Who did you vote for? What party do you support?" I'm not interested. I'm not really not interested. My job is to help that person, no matter what their political background is. And so therefore, when I spoke to people on the doorstep, one of the questions I asked is, "Have you met the candidates for the other parties?" And they said, "No, we've never, in 25 years, one lady in Wick St Lawrence has never, ever, ever had a potential councillor or councillor knock on the door." And I can tell you now, Nick, I got a lot of my votes just for the fact that I knocked on over a week. I knocked on every single door in the two parishes of St George's and Wick St Lawrence. And I spoke to a lot of people, including very, very staunch Labour supporters, unionists, who said, "We're going to vote for you, actually, because we like the fact you're independent and we like the fact that you've knocked on our door to a certain extent." So, I think that gives a background on why I got interested in the council. So,
for people who don't understand, when you stand for council areas are quite small. Hence why independents can do quite well, because you can knock on every door over a weekend in a council area. And if you knock on someone's door, a lot of the time, people don't want to know, especially in the cities. But the people who are interested get to meet you. They get to look into your eyes. They get to ask you a question they've been dying to ask someone for years. And for that councillor never to have knocked on people's doors just goes to show that they thought it was a safe seat, that they didn't have to engage in the nitty-gritty of speaking to the plebs on the doorstep, because we can just take them for granted. We need more politicians on the local level, on the street level, to engage people and get them more involved in politics. So well done.
Yeah, it's really important that, Nick, what you just said about engagement, because the problem I've found as a councillor is that public engagement is few and far between. You don't hear, unless something goes seriously wrong, then you don't really hear from your constituents very often. I've started recently doing councillor surgeries. So, and I do it on a Saturday morning when I know most people are off, or can get there between 10 and 12, and it overrun. And I did one a few weeks ago. I had about 8 or 9 people turn up that engaged, that had wanted to complain about a couple of things, but also just wanted to meet me and chat to me. And I've got another one on the 28th of June, because I've got 2 areas, St George's and Wick St Lawrence. And you're quite right. The vote, the turnout for the vote, I think, was 38-40%. It wasn't a great deal. The public engagement is something I'm really concerned about.
Well, you don't think that's high? In Manchester, we have areas for council seats in Manchester that win their seat and turnout is like 16-17%.
Exactly. And this needs to change, Nick. And this is what people need to realise is, when you talk about, let's talk about national politics very quickly. When you talk about Keir Starmer got 9 million votes. This man's ruling the country with 9 million votes, when there's a potentially 54 to 55 million people can vote in this country when you take away children and people that are underage. So out of a 54 to 55 million people within the country, only 9 million people voted for him, and he's making all these massive changes within the country. And I think you have to ask yourself, is that real democracy? Because to me, I don't think it is. And I think it's very deep rooted, that system of voting. And I think that's going to be looked at in during the next election, whatever happens there. I think the way that the vote, there's another example of how many votes the Liberal Democrats got and how many votes, Reform got, and Reform ended up with 4 or 5 MPs, and the Liberal Democrats ended up with 73 or 74 MPs. So there's definitely something there needs to be looked at, in my opinion. But politics aside, I tried to stay independent. So that was and then going back to your question about why I went to Reform, is that unfortunately in January, I was targeted by a group called the Accountability Project, which, in my opinion, and I can only state it as I see it, it was a far left-wing attack on subjective posts that I'd posted, a number of them, and it was reported to the council anonymously. They're a completely anonymous entity. They don't have any platform on social media or on Google or anything. Nobody knows who they are, and they took offence in their particular manner of particular posts that I posted. Nothing too controversial, but it did basically make me feel like I was left out to dry, because the complaint that was made basically stated that because of my subjective views, or the way that they subjectively looked at these views, that I was some sort of raving racist, Islamophobic, homophobic, misogynistic, everything you can throw at me, they basically stated I was. Now, categorically, it was incorrect. They were asked if they wanted to make a formal complaint, which they didn't. So therefore, the council didn't actually take any action whatsoever. But what happened then was, as an independent councillor, I was aligned with a group, and the group that I was aligned with was the Liberal Democrats. I think of being a little bit naive. I mean, 2 years down the line now, I understand it a lot better. But at the time, a friend of mine who was an independent, said, look, there's 4 independents. We're going to join the Liberal Democrats as a little bit of a coalition within North Somerset Council, basically to prevent Labour from taking control. Of course, as soon as he said it in that way, I thought, oh, great, yeah, I'm going to do that because we don't want Labour to take control. So, yeah, okay, that's fine. I was asked to join the Liberal Democrats, so I said no, because there's strict policies on EU that I don't agree with. So there was no way I was going to join, but I didn't mind being part of a group. Got on with everybody. It was really, really informative, because I learned a lot of things. But after this complaint was put in, basically the group voted me off. I think 6 to 11 or whatever, 6 out of the 11 voted me off. And when they voted me off, basically what the Accountability Project was trying to do was cancel me in the positions that I was in, because the positions I was given was based on my background. So I was the head of licensing. Obviously, being a magistrate, I understood how licensing worked, and a lot of the licensing hearings was based on three of us, a bit like a magistrate's court, really. I was on planning and regulatory. I was on health scrutiny panel. I was chairman of the Armed Forces Covenant, and I had a few other positions. So I was given a fair few positions for a new councillor, and I really took hold of it, really enjoyed it. And basically, I was removed from every single position because of these subjective posts. And we could talk about that if you like, and I can explain a couple of them. But nothing unlawful, nothing outrageous, just a different view. One of the views, which is very simple to talk about, is this, this sort of teaching young children about LGBT in schools at 6, 7 years old. I totally disagree with it. I don't think it should be part of it. I've got a 7-year-old, and she doesn't even know what to wear to school in the mornings, let alone want to know about anything sexual or anything like that. And I just don't agree with it. And one of the posts that I put was a girl, like a caricature of a girl being sick with a rainbow. And controversial, but I still stand by that.
Well, it's not even controversial. We're all sick of the bloody rainbow, aren't we? Let's be honest. We're all sick of it. We've all got pride fatigue now. I'm just completely sick of all the lunacy going on. And we don't have to get into those posts, because you know what? Every one of those posts, I'll put money on that. They're all completely acceptable. But because you was a councillor and you spoke out, and I would imagine it's probably some of the Lib Dems in your group.
Yes, I think so.
You were the instigators of this because they don't want you in their group.
I wouldn't even be surprised, Nick, if somebody, because this group is called the Accountability Project. What makes me laugh is they're called the Accountability Project, but they're not accountable themselves.
Of course they're not.
So I would not be surprised, and I don't mind saying it to you and to the public who get to see this, that I would not be surprised if somebody on the council is a member of that group.
Of course, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
And the problem here, Nick, is that people continually, with people with my views, are just cancelled. And what I'm finding now is I'm actually getting patted on the back. Well done, Stuart. Well done for saying that, because a lot of people won't say, And I want to make it quite clear, because, what I was accused of is that I have never, ever, ever been or accused or formally complained about in 30 years of public service. Never. In my police service, I policed in the city of Bristol, very diverse ethnic background. I was on firearms, and then I've been a councillor and I've been a magistrate. I've never had a formal complaint. The only people that have ever complained about me was this group, this Accountability Project. And it was unjust. It was quite upsetting to see that the local media took hold of it and put a couple of stories in the paper. But what people don't know, which I found out, Nick, which is really, really interesting, the local reporter for the Western Mercury is actually paid by the BBC. He's actually financed by the BBC. I couldn't believe it when I saw it, and I looked it up. And he really had a real pop at me about these posts. And one in particular was the Tommy Robinson post. And what I did is I only joined X on I think the late January of this year. I've only been on X very, very short period. But when I when I went to America, because I went to America to watch the inauguration with my brother, it was his birthday, and we travelled over there. My brother's birthday was on the day of the inauguration. We went for 5 days and had a bit of a jolly. And I was using X quite a lot because I had a bit of downtime in the hotel. And I shared an Elon Musk post. And you probably know, Elon Musk has been supporting Tommy Robinson financially and with his legal side of things. And Elon Musk had posted the documentary that I'd never seen. And when I was in my hotel room, I thought I'll watch the documentary. Wrongly or rightly, although they said that the documentary was non-disclosable because it went against, certain laws, because some of the filming was secretly filmed, it was quite adamant. It was quite evident that the story that the media had told wasn't quite fitting to what the actual documentary said. And I put a post that said Elon Musk post saying you should watch the documentary, or people should watch this, and I stand by that as well, because and my defense was, oh, you're a supporter of Tommy Robinson. Well, actually, if anybody goes back through my social media, Facebook, my ex account, I've never supported or openly supported Tommy Robinson or championed Tommy Robinson. But on this particular occasion, I did support and do support Elon Musk and the way that he went about things. So I had an interest through Elon Musk, not through Tommy Robinson. But the headline was, Reform Councillor supports Tommy Robinson or something like that. They mentioned it, and they kept mentioning it. And it just became a little bit silly, really, with the press, because they were just trying to, stick the knife in that I'm some sort of Tommy Robinson nutter, which I'm not by any stretch of the imagination. I think Nigel Farage has even been asked questions about it, and thinks that he's been treated terribly. Didn't elaborate any more than that. I feel the same. I think that the sentences for a civil contempt of court was disproportionate. Bit like Lucy Connolly, that was disproportionate, as it's been all over social media. So I'm allowed to have that opinion, and that is still my opinion. I think that he's been awfully treated. I don't agree with everything he says. I don't, but then again, I don't disagree with everything he says. Similar to Elon Musk, I don't agree with everything he says, but there's some stuff that I do agree that he says. So, yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, Nick, to be honest.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, a steep learning curve.
Well, it's bound to be a learning curve because politics is a dirty business.
Yeah.